Could we actually see a B-52 in War Thunder? Hello guys, once again, it's Matt. Thank you all the members and patrons. Make sure to subscribe, and today we are flying out the B-52 in War Thunder, as you see over here, guys. This is actually a mod made by Nofi, I think it's called, right? He did this amazing model. Let me just drop the bombs over here, and I will leave the links in the description for you to download it, and also his YouTube channel to check it out. Okay, guys? And of course, this amazing model is actually pretty interesting to take a look. Why? Because can we expect if a B-52 is ever added to War Thunder? And let's try to answer the question if we can even see something like this being added. So the first thing is the performance of this aircraft. As you see, I managed to actually climb pretty well. I think the drag of the bombs are pretty massive right now in this model, but still, and it's just a user model, of course. When something is going to be introduced, it's going to have a different fly model because gaijin will have different parameters, etc., right? So it's difficult to say what the fly model would actually be like. But in a general way, of course, it is a very sluggish aircraft. If you want to turn around and stuff, it takes a lot of time, and that's, of course, fine. The roll is actually pretty interesting to see. It's pretty alright. It's probably due to the massive wings that this thing has. But yeah, the turning capability, it's not that bad, actually. But it cannot do anything too crazy, you know? I mean, this is actually kind of crazy for this aircraft, but still. And I think the major thing here is the speed. Look at the speed. We cannot get too fast with this thing. Obviously, it's a massive aircraft. It's not made to do supersonic speeds and stuff. It's actually pretty fast if you ask me, with the swept wing design and stuff. I mean, Mach 0.9 here. I mean, this is pretty alright. I have to check the performance values on the internet, but still, it is a pretty good performance for the model itself, right? And the bombs are not really, ready. It's not that many, etc. The thing is that this thing can actually carry 32,000 kilograms of bombs, which are basically more than 3 B-29s, right? So it's a lot of bombs. It's a lot of bombs. Of course, nuclear bombs as well and stuff. So it's a pretty strong aircraft in the sense of heavy weight and what it can actually deliver on its payload. I mean, just grab a 500-pound, a 250 Mark 82, I think it is, right? And you do divide it by the 32,000 kilograms. It's a lot of bombs. So depending on the weapon loadouts, you can actually carry like a lot of bombs, So where is the objective of adding this? This is the first subject that I wanted to talk about. Well, the first thing is obviously because it's fun, it's a big bomber, iconic for the Cold War, and of course it's still in service. And it's a beautiful aircraft if you like bombers as well, right? So it has a place in the game, I think. Even if it's just using unguided stuff, it would still have a place in the game, I think. The problem is two things, I think. The first one is the lack of objectives for this thing to actually destroy. So for something like this to actually be added, we would need a whole new type of objective inside air matches to actually be able to destroy this aircraft. The bombing sites are already destroyed very easily by the aircraft that are already in the game. So something like this would just not have the time to get to the targets, right? Something they can actually do is basically have a bombing site in the game that actually is just for this type of strategic bomber, right? So other bombers don't even see it in the game, and if you spawn in one of these, you would be able to see it where it is and be able to destroy it and get the point, right? Or something like that. For ground battles, of course, it would be more for the meme, because obviously it is going to destroy the whole match there, so they need to balance it out if it is ever added, right? But yeah, this would be it. It can have a place in the game, but we would need some differences in the game itself, in the game modes themselves, to actually be able to have such an aircraft. But the second problem is the big one. These aircraft are very easy to destroy. That's the thing. We gotta talk about strategic choices in a war, okay? As you know, something like the Operation Linebacker can actually happen in the game, or even the Black Monday, I think it's called, right? Which was basically using World War II, strategies with strategic bombers like this, of swarm of them, in Vietnam and Korea, so after World War II, to actually try to bomb places, right? The US did that to actually try to use a strategic bomber inside the battlefield. But the problem is that they were kinda easy picking targets for AA systems, for aircraft. Of course, they were successful in their own way, especially because the countries that they were fighting for against, they had somewhat limited air force, especially in the Vietnam War, but still, they had success dealing with these bombers, even with a very short in numbers air force, right? So it means a lot of these aircraft were shot down, and a lot of B-29s were shot down and stuff in Korea as well, right? Which means that these strategies are not really effective. Why is that? Because they are very easy targets. That's the thing, right? They're very easy targets for missiles. They're very easy targets for cannons, especially if you are in an aircraft that can do Mach 1 plus, right? So it's a very, very easy thing to destroy an aircraft of this size, especially with AA systems as well, and with the development of better AA systems that can do well past the ranges or altitudes on the missile that these aircraft can actually fly, right? So we have a big problem here of BR and where to put this aircraft. We don't want something like the A-10 to be added. We don't want these aircraft to completely win matches and destroy everything, because the enemies that they are facing are from World War II or Korea, for example, and we don't want these aircraft to be in too high of a BR, so that these things just get killed very easily, like they would probably be in a modern warfare, right? So it's a problematic aircraft to add because of that. Of course, there are some minor things that they can do to actually help. For example, here we don't have it, but the B-52 actually in Korea, in the Vietnam War, actually had gunners. They actually shot down one MiG-21 with a gunner. So it's not like it's completely defenseless, but a gunner against MiG-21s, MiG-23s, stuff like that, it might be a problem, right? Another thing is chaff and flares and stuff like that. These aircraft had an immense amount of chaffs and flares, especially today, to actually defend themselves against fighters that are kind of modern, right? So they can actually add a lot of chaff, a lot of flares. That would actually help against most missiles and stuff. Since it doesn't have afterburners and stuff, it might be a target that can actually deal with it. I mean, maybe they buff a little bit the chaff on it to actually be a little bit easier to actually stay alive. And not that it needs, if it is like a 9.7 BR or something like that, I think you would be fine. And another thing is the addition of ECM, guys. These aircraft actually used and you still use probably a very heavy ECM suit, right? So maybe this is the salvation for this type of bomber, having the only aircraft in War Thunder that would have ECM. That's, I think, the only way of these aircraft actually being added and not being killed by radar missiles very easily. I don't know how they would implement it. Maybe they have their own way of implementing it. It doesn't need to be 100% realistic, as long as it is realistic enough that it can be passed as kinda realistic, and it is good for the gameplay, in my opinion at least, right? So it's, like I said, there are many little things that these aircraft can actually be added or not, or whatever, right? So it's an aircraft that has many instances of lines of thinking and things that they need to think about before adding something like this. The game modes need to change, the aircraft needs to change, and they need to really think about where they are putting these aircraft, because if not, it's just going to be completely useless aircraft. But if they do find a way of adding these things, a lot of people would be happy as well, because it's not only about the B-52 that we're talking about here, right? We are talking about Tu-95s, we're talking about Tu-16s, and more modern Tupolevs, and the Vulcan and other strategic bombers, right? And the thing that you have to just think about is, think about the modern warfare. What the countries did during the Cold War to defend their bombers, to make them stay alive while dealing with targets? Well, they made them faster, they made them fly low, they made them with a lot of radars and be able to defend themselves. That's the Tornado for you. That's the Su-24, that's the F-111, the more modern ones. That's the B-1, the Tupolev 160. So think about strategic bombers as kind of an outdated technology, to be honest, in the battlefield, in the normal battlefield. Of course, nuclear bombs and stuff, they're going to use these aircraft to deploy them if they can and stuff. But even them, I mean, even with nuclear bombs, it's going to be kind of a secondary line of option to bomb targets, right? Because we have, in today's standards, ICBMs and FOBs and other things, right? Although FOBs are kind of prohibited, you know, there are countries that have FOBs, you know, which are orbital bombardment systems, right? So like orbital nuclear warheads that can actually be very hard to detect and destroy targets very quickly without a warning, like a 3-minute warning. Or something like that, right? So there are many other modern systems that are way better than a B-52, right? Or strategic bombers. So it's a problematic thing even for nuclear warheads. So at the end of the day, is it worth it? Well, you tell me. The community, I think in general, would like to see these aircraft, but there are many little things that need to be changed to the game and well thought about before adding these things so that they can actually be fun to play and not just useless. Right? So yeah, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think about the B-52, if it should be added or not. See ya guys, bye.